Podcast.
Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we're talking about the death penalty. Should it be abolished? Is capital punishment inhumane with gas chambers and lethal injections and firing squads? If you've listened to this show, you know what my stance is, all right? And here's the thing. Like, I think, in a perfect world, in a weird dystopian world, which is crazy that I don't think we're too far away from at this point, pay-per-view executions, all right? Whether it's like a war criminal or just some heinous mass murderer who has earned the death penalty for sure, all right? Let's set them up somewhere. Let's get some cameras in the prison yard or wherever. Let's charge $100 pay-per-view. All right. Can only be viewed in a private setting. You can't go to like Buffalo Wild Wings and watch the execution. All right. Let's have some civility here. All right. But pay-per-view, let's, charge $100 or let's make it like $500. All right. Let's add some barriers here so we're not like such a depraved society. All right. And let's watch people get murdered. All right. Because we used to do that as a society. If there was an announcement that someone was going to get hanged, people would just go down to the town square and make a day of it. All right. It used to just be prime entertainment to watch someone get executed. All right. The guillotine, whatever it was. I think we can go back to that. All right. I don't think that I think it's a good deterrent to say, hey, this is what's going to happen to you if you act out. We're going to police ourselves here a little bit, But now look, I think if there's like some shady, circumstantial evidence around it, or maybe they don't deserve the death penalty. Life in prison for sure. But like someone who has like some of these dinglings who commit these mass shootings, because they get a voice in their head that says kill everybody for whatever dumb reason. And then they just go up to a school or into a church or at a parade or wherever, and they just mow down multiple people. That's a prime candidate for a public execution. Because he clearly did it. There's a ton of evidence to show that he did it. He even admitted that he did it. So like execution, pay-per-view, $500. Let's eat into some of this national debt, right? Because the government's the one that has to put on the execution, right? So all of the 100% of the proceeds outside of operating costs for the broadcast go back into the government to then eat at the national debt. I mean, it's, we're running out of ideas as a country to, be financially stable because it's only getting worse. So, I mean, I don't know. It seems like even if it just eats a small chunk out of it, I think it's progress. But today's episode, we're talking about 3 people who got the death penalty and then didn't end up dying. And because of some crazy stuff that happened. So let's look at the stories today of Joseph Samuel, Ludger Sylbaris, and our first story will be of Anne Green.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
I'm trying to think, like, if we did pay-per-view executions, like, what's the style of execution? Because you got to remember, like, we're soft as a society. So, like, seeing someone get hanged might be very traumatic for some people who make bad decisions and watch anyway. Lethal injection, whatever. Like, we're gonna put them to sleep and then kill. That's not entertaining. All right. So we're probably down to like electric chair. Could go poorly, especially if like their brain starts smoking out of their skull or something. Guillotine could be really bloody. I don't know. Man, I think firing squad. I think or die by the way that you murdered everyone, and which for most people is going to be guns. So firing squad, drop them. That's it. Just JFK them right in the dome, and that's it. And maybe you won't have skull fragments flying everywhere, but it'll be fun. And honestly, if he was really I know firing squad is 8 dudes fire all at the same time, but maybe we Russian roulette it, and we just get let a billionaire or something pay an extra $1 million to pick a number 1 through 8. And then, he picks number 2, gunman number 2 shoots. Oh, it was a blank. Another billionaire comes in, pays him. I don't know. That seems fun. Anyway, Anne Green was a domestic servant for Sir Thomas Reed in Dunstoo in central England. When she was 22, she was raped by Reed's grandson and got pregnant. But unfortunately, the baby was stillborn, and Anne, not really wanting to deal with the shame and embarrassment of having to tell everyone that her baby didn't make it, she had disposed of the body herself. Despite medical evidence proving that the baby was stillborn, Anne was still sentenced to death for the baby's murder because doctors and their opinions weren't real back then. All right. And never mind that this girl got raped. And now she's got the death penalty for this baby, the result of this baby. That's great. And look, I don't know. Maybe Reed's grandson who raped her ended up getting in trouble too. History doesn't really care about that guy. All right. We really only care about Anne Green. On December 14th, 1650, because we are way back in history for this, obviously, Anne was hanged in Oxford. And as she swung in the breeze, kind of how they did, just gently after, the momentum and everything stopped, several of her friends walked up and actually began pulling and beating on her body to make sure that she was dead. Now, that sounds terrible, but Anne had specifically requested this. Her friends were not complete savages. However, once everyone believed that she was dead, she was cut down off the noose and off the gallows. The prison doctor even pronounced her death, and her body was then donated to the local university to be dissected by medical students. The next day, just before the dissection was about to begin, a group of physicians noticed that Anne had a faint pulse and was actually still breathing. And then because this was the 1600s and no one knew how to actually bring someone back to life, doctors just kind of freaked out, and they started doing everything that they could think of. They started by shoving hot cordial, which was kind of this old-fashioned medicinal syrup down her throat. That didn't really do anything, so they began vigorously rubbing her arms, legs, fingers, and toes to try to, stimulate circulation. She was bled, which seems like the last thing you want to do when you're trying to bring someone back to life, because, I don't know, but again, 1600s, they didn't know anything. They stuck a heated plaster all over her body. They gave her a tobacco smoke enema because now I wonder if that's where the phrase blowing smoke up comes from. Oh man. I don't know. Probably not. But they blew tobacco smoke up her butt. I'm assuming it was her butt. And I don't think at any point they considered how ridiculous that would be. Finally, they placed her in a bed with another woman to keep her warm, and it was this weird lesbianic treatment that helped Anne make a full recovery. Because 17th century Brits didn't understand how clearly anything worked, they interpreted Anne's recovery and lack of death from hanging as a sign from God that she was actually innocent. And I mean, they're right, but how they got there, not right. Like, show your work, right? I don't. Anyway, Anne was then granted a full pardon and actually lived for another 15 years. So good for her. Moving on to Joseph Samuel, who was convicted of robbery in 1795 and sentenced to be transported to Australia, where, sensing an opportunity to live freely in a relatively uninhabited new land, he promptly escaped from his prison-ish and escaped into the bush. Once out on the lam, Samuel and a gang of other escaped convicts robbed the home of a wealthy woman and murdered Joseph Ludger, a policeman in charge of guarding this wealthy woman's home. Ludger, who was Australia's first policeman killed on duty, because I mean, it's the 1790s, like Australia hasn't been around that long yet. Ludger suffered 16 head wounds, and the guard of his sword had been forcefully lodged into his skull. Not the blade, but like the guard, like where I guess the guard of your hand, where you, I don't know the parts of a sword, you guys. I just know the sharp part and the handle. But the guard of his sword had been forced. Like, this dude got brutally murdered. Samuel and his gang were quickly captured and rearrested. Though Samuel confessed to robbing the house, he denied any involvement in Ludger's murder. But everyone else in the gang was acquitted, while Samuel was sentenced to death because the owner of the home had specifically identified him during the entire ordeal. Now, here's the thing. Probably deserves it. Right? Convicted of robbery, sentenced to go to the Australian penal colony, robs this lady's house, and at least is part of this really brutal murder. All right? Positively identified out of everybody else. All right? Now, deserved the death penalty more than Anne Green, for sure. Now, it does go back to my previous point where it's like extenuating circumstances, circumstantial evidence. No one actually saw this dude kill the police officer, but wrong place, wrong time, so they did it to him anyway. On September 26th, 1803, Samuel and some other unnamed random criminal were driven to the city of Parramatta, where hundreds of people were gathered to watch the execution, because that's just, again, how you had to entertain yourself in the early 1800s. While the two men stood in a cart at the gallows, ropes were fastened around their necks, and they were given one last opportunity to pray with a priest. Once everything was in place, the cart was then driven off to begin strangling the two men to death. And I guess, like, they were attached to the gallows, and then the rest of the rope was attached to the cart, and then the cart would just run off, and then once the rope ran out of slack, they would just get... I don't know. While the other man died, worked like a charm, he's dead. Samuel's rope snapped, causing him to fall to the ground and sprain his ankle. The executioner quickly grabbed another rope, tied it around Samuel's neck, and then propped him back into the cart to restart the process. This time, though, Samuel fell out of the cart, causing the noose to slip off of his neck. At this point, now, going 0 for 2 on executions, the crowd began begging for Samuel's freedom, especially since the executioner clearly was not doing his job very well. Instead, the executioner went back in again, made extra sure to get the rope as tight as possible around Samuel's neck before placing him back in the cart and driving away again. However, the third rope snapped, sending Samuel toppling back to the ground and still very much not dead. Now the crowd is in even more frenzied state, and so a policeman paused the execution and rode off to find the governor, who arrived a few minutes later to inspect the scene. After carefully inspecting the rope that successfully killed the other criminal and comparing it to the other 3 ropes that couldn't kill Samuel, again, the governor proclaimed that this was a sign from God indicating that Samuel had not committed a crime worthy of execution. And again, maybe, but I don't know if I like how you got to that conclusion. So instead, he was just sentenced to life in prison, which seems fair. Our final story here is of Ludger Sylbaris, who was born on June 1st, 1874 on a plantation near Le Precheur, Martinique, where he worked as a common laborer in the island's capital city at the time of Saint Pierre. And I say at the time, because you'll find out in a second. On May 7th, 1902, Sylbaris got into a drunken fight and was thrown into jail for the night, though some accounts will say that Sylbaris had actually killed a man and was in jail for murder. And because he was so drunk and so angry, Sylbaris was ordered to be put into solitary confinement and was locked in a single-cell, bomb-proofed room with stone walls that was partially underground. Whatever. At 7:52 a.m. the following morning, Mount Pelée, a massive volcano north of St. Pierre, violently erupted, tearing a hole in the side of the mountain like Mount St. Helens style, and sending a huge black cloud flying horizontally out. Not like a standard volcanic eruption where it's like a big poofy cloud up into the sky. Like the side of this mountain exploded, and so it goes out horizontally. Another mushroom cloud did blossom upward, darkening the sky for 50 miles in every direction. This cloud, obviously full of hot gas and volcanic matter, then plunged down the mountain at 100 miles per hour, destroying the entire city of St. Pierre in less than a minute. Those people got Pompeii. I don't know why we don't talk about it like we do Pompeii. Maybe they haven't gotten around to excavating it yet, or maybe it just wasn't that interesting. I don't know. It's also not as old as Pompeii. You know, Pompeii, thousands of years old. St. Pierre, a couple hundred. So maybe we just don't care about it anyway. The temperature of the air near the volcanic eruption soared to over 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Every single building and structure in the city was flattened. 30,000 people were either vaporized or suffocated to death. And that is everyone except for one man. Can you guess who it was? Have you been paying attention? Is your listening comprehension skills where they should be as, I assume, an adult listening to this show? Well, 4 days later, a rescue team heard Sylbaris yelling from inside the destroyed prison and dragged him out. He told them in his account of events, everything suddenly went dark and the air got extremely hot. Obviously, it was 1,800 degrees outside. Although he tried peeing on his clothes and stuffing them in the doorway, the hot air and ash actually seeped in and left him with very severe burns on his hands, arms, legs, and back. Without a formal government to process his charges on account of everything and everyone being destroyed, Sylbaris actually was pardoned and ended up joining the Barnum and Bailey Circus, where he toured the States and recounted his horrific adventure before his eventual death in 1929. There you go. Defying the death penalty in the books. I know what you're thinking. Well, John, I don't think the last guy was actually formally sentenced to death. Well, he escaped a giant volcanic eruption. That's defying death in some ways. So I don't know, man. He was also in prison. It fit the narrative of the whole theme of the episode. Get off my dick. Let's recap and see what we learned today.
What did we learn?
Number one, just because you can't formally execute someone the right way doesn't mean that it was a sign from God that they were actually innocent. Were they innocent to begin with? Possibly. More than likely, especially in the case of Anne Green. She didn't do anything wrong. But, I don't know. Anyway, number two, also talking about Anne Green. Could we have maybe used a little bit of leniency up front where she was raped, but then she got vilified because the baby didn't live? And even if the baby had been born and she had killed it, I don't know that it justifies the death penalty. She got raped. All right. The dude that raped her maybe he was. I don't know. I don't remember from the story. I don't think anyone cared. But I don't know, man. Common sense. And then number 3, Ludger Sylbaris survived a massive volcanic eruption that destroyed the town of St. Pierre. Stayed in a prison for 4 days after the eruption, severe burns, but he lived somehow in the, I mean, we're talking about a bomb-proof cell. Yeah, I think that checks out.
What did we learn?
Anyway, happy Memorial Day. I want to live in a country where soldiers die for my freedom to watch a pay-per-view execution. Anyway, next week on the show, we are into June. It's the unofficial start of summer, and it's another weird fun bag. 3 stories, as always. We are looking at the story of May Otis Blackburn and her weird cult. The bonus army, which is not an additional army, but an army because they wanted their monetary bonuses after war. I don't know. You'll see what it's a sad story though. Kind of. It's really frustrating because of the government. And then the last one, George Weyerhaeuser. You probably haven't heard of any of these, and that's fine. That's what I'm here for. Gonna show you some stuff next week. So thank you for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends and keep it weird.
This is a podcast